The evening settled into a hush so gentle it almost felt holy. Everything outside had slipped into stillness, and the house itself seemed to breathe in soft, quiet waves. The steady hum of the refrigerator was the only sound filling the room, a calm, constant rhythm against the silence. A light trace of lavender floated from the diffuser on the corner table, mixing with the warm glow of the lamp beside me. Its amber shine brushed over everything: the walls, the couch, even the open book resting on my lap. For a moment, peace felt close enough to touch. Then the front door creaked open. The sound cut through the quiet like an old memory you never meant to return to. I lifted my gaze, waiting to hear keys drop on the counter or shoes scuff against the mat, but nothing came. Ethan stepped inside, moving as if he carried something heavy no one else could see. At 18, my stepson had grown into the kind of person who could fill a room without speaking. Tall, reserved, with an energy that was both grounded and unsettled. But tonight, even that steady presence seemed to have slipped away from him. His hoodie hung loosely, his hair falling over half his face. When his eyes met mine, they darted away almost instantly. "Hey," he murmured, his voice thin and tired. I closed my book softly. "Hey, Ethan, you all right?" He paused, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. There were words hovering on his lips, but none of them seemed ready to come out. I gestured toward the couch, offering him the spot beside me. But he only shook his head and lowered himself into the armchair instead. Leaning forward, elbows on his knees, his fingers slipped through his hair. The space between us grew heavy with everything he wasn't saying. After a long moment, he finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's about my girlfriend. We've been talking about what comes next, and I don't think I'm ready," he said. And a wave of sympathy tugged at me, though I kept my tone steady as I asked, "That's all right. What's making you anxious?" He swallowed, looking unsettled. I don't want to let her down. I'm scared I'll ruin things," he admitted, his voice breaking at the end. "Ethan," I said gently, "you're not supposed to have every answer right now. Feeling unsure doesn't mean you're failing, it shows you care. The most important thing is to be honest. Tell her what's truly in your heart. Everything else will find its place." His gaze dropped, jaw tightening. "But what if she pulls away? What if she thinks less of me?" he murmured. "Then that's something you both will face together," I replied softly. "Real relationships aren't held together by they're rooted in honesty. The people who matter, they stay." His shoulders loosened slightly, and a tiny, almost hidden smile crossed his face. "Thanks," he whispered. I returned the smile. "You don't need to be perfect, Ethan. You just have to be yourself." For the first time that evening, his eyes met mine without wavering, a faint shine in them: gratitude, maybe relief. I didn't push for more. Some feelings don't need extra words. Later that night, as I lay in bed, the conversation replayed in my mind, and I found myself thinking about the boy who had stepped into my life years ago, unsure and how much he had grown, yet how delicate that growth could still be. Adulthood doesn't arrive in a single moment. It comes in waves of fear, uncertainty, and moments like this, when you understand how loudly silence can speak. In the days that followed, though, something in Ethan quietly shifted. The lightness that usually settled after our conversations didn't appear this time, and he moved around the house quietly, more like a shadow of who he used to be. Meals went by without a word, and the laughter that once filled the rooms bright, loud, contagious had completely faded. At first, I convinced myself it was typical. Teenagers shift through moods the way seasons change, but as days slipped into weeks, the silence grew heavier, pressing down on everything. He started keeping his door locked more often, and whenever I knocked offering tea, a walk, a movie, he'd always answer, "I'm fine," though I could hear in his voice that he wasn't. One evening, unable to ignore the weight of it any longer, I stood outside his door with my hand hovering over the wood. "Ethan," I called softly, "can I come in?" There was a long pause before a tired, quiet "yat." When I stepped inside, he was stretched out on his bed, staring blankly at the ceiling. His fists were tight, his face pale, eyes dulled and vacant. Even the air felt different in the room, thick, suffocating. I sat at the edge of the bed. "You've been really quiet lately. Talk to me." For a moment, he said nothing, then slowly turned his gaze toward me, his eyes rimmed with red as his voice quivered. "It's stupid." "It's not stupid," I replied gently. "Not if it's hurting you." He drew in a shaky breath, and then everything came spilling out: the mess with his girlfriend, the breakup, the harsh rumors that followed, the quiet taunts at school. His sentences came out tangled between sobs and pauses, each one hitting harder than the last. When he finally fell silent, the room grew still again. But now the quiet felt delicate, as if it could break with one wrong word. I reached out and placed my hand on his arm.